I never thought this kind of thing would happen to me. You hear about it in stories, in movies, maybe from friends. Never imagined I'd be the guy sitting here, feeling like the rug was pulled out from under my feet. My wife Emily was my everything. We, known each other since college, shared everything, or so I thought. When she moved into my place a few years back, I believed I'd finally found someone who truly understood me. We had plans, big ones. A wedding that was supposed to happen next month, a new house, a life built on trust, or so I had thought, until I started noticing strange things, little things at first. Her phone ringing at odd hours, abrupt mood swings, and the way she'd suddenly become more secretive about her phone, clutching it tight and disappearing whenever I was near. I brushed it off, convinced I was just overthinking it. But deep down, I sensed something was off. Then came the moment that shattered everything. I was helping her pack up her things last Saturday, preparing for her move into her new apartment. We had a long day of arguing about wedding details. Nothing unusual, just the usual. Pre-wedding stress. When she went to grab a box from the closet, I noticed something tucked behind her clothes, a small, crumpled envelope half hidden. My stomach clenched. I pulled it out without thinking. The envelope was thin, sealed with a plain sticker. I peeled it open, my hands trembling. Inside was a receipt from a local clinic, an ultrasound appointment booked for last month under her name. My eyes widened. I looked closer, then saw the name of her coworker, Mark, printed on the appointment slip. My pulse hammered against my chest. I didn't need to read further, I already knew. Emily had been pregnant, and the timing matched right before our wedding plans. I felt the blood drain from my face. My mind spun in circles. How could she do this? How long had she been hiding this? She was supposed to be my future, my partner. This was betrayal on a level I couldn't even process. I clenched my fists so tight I thought my nails would cut into my palms. I wanted to scream, wanted to shake her, ask her what the hell was going on. I watched her as she moved around the room, utterly unaware of the discovery. Her face was calm, almost too calm, as if she was hiding something big. My stomach twisted. I had all the evidence now. The secret, the lies, the pregnancy, the man she cheated with. It was all right there in my hands. I couldn't breathe properly. My head was spinning and a cold rage started to build. This wasn't just infidelity, it was deception on an epic scale. She lied to me from the start, and she'd kept a part of her life hidden, her pregnancy, her affair, Mark. I wondered how deep this went. Did she love him? Was this whole marriage just a cover-up for her secret life? I looked at her standing there oblivious, and I felt my fists curl even tighter. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. Not just the affair, but the pregnancy. This whole time she had been lying, hiding a huge part of herself. My mind raced with plans, with questions. How could I trust her again? Was there any point? I felt my jaw tighten as a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was assault on who I was and what I believed in. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but my hands still trembled. I needed to get out of that room, away from her. I'd confront her, but not yet. First, I had to figure out what I was really going to do. It was clear now, Emily had been playing me from the start, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without a fight. As I turned to leave, my mind kept replaying the scene, the truth I had uncovered. She was supposed to be my wife. Instead, she'd been hiding Mark's secret, her pregnancy, her betrayal. My stomach lurched again, hard and sickening. I told myself I'd be strong, I'd find a way to handle this, but right now I just wanted to scream. The moment I found that envelope, everything felt like it was crashing down around me. I stood there in the middle of the room, staring at the crumpled paper, trying to breathe through the shock. My mind was racing, trying to process what I'd just seen. The ultrasound appointment. The date, the name, Mark. How could she have kept this from me for so long? I kept telling myself to stay calm, but it was impossible. My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Every beat of my heart was a drum pounding out a relentless rhythm of betrayal. I had known Emily for years, trusted her with everything. And now I was beginning to wonder if that trust had been nothing but a fool's hope. I looked around the room, trying to find some sense of clarity. I needed to think, to plan. My first instinct was to confront her right then and there, but I knew better. If I did that now, I'd say things I'd regret. Instead, I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I opened her texts. Her messages with Mark, casual, friendly, nothing overt, but I knew the truth. They'd been hiding something all along. I felt my jaw tight. I couldn't just walk away. I had to do something, something more calculated. Revenge, maybe. It was the only thing that felt right. I wasn't going to let her walk away and pretend it never happened. No, she needed to feel the weight of what she'd done. That night, I stayed up, going over every detail. I wanted to know how far this went. Did she love Mark? Was she planning to keep the pregnancy? My mind kept spinning in circles. I'd seen enough movies, read enough stories to know that if I wanted to hit her where it hurt, I had to be smart. No rash moves, no yelling, just patience. I started planning. I needed an edge, something undeniable, something I could use to confront her with the truth and make her realize I wasn't going to be played anymore. I remembered an old friend, someone I trusted who worked in private investigation. I contacted him, explained the situation, and asked if he could dig into Emily's phone records, her social media, anything that could give me more dirt. I wanted to know if she'd been sneaking around with anyone else, or if Mark was just the tip of the iceberg. While I waited for that info, I decided to check her stuff more thoroughly. I snooped through her emails, her social profiles. It was disgusting to do it, but at that moment I didn't care. I found messages between her and Mark. Nothing explicit, but enough to see they'd been communicating for months secretly. They'd been planning something. I could feel it in every word. The date stamps matched the ultrasound appointment. It was all right there, proof of how deep this betrayal ran. I sat back and rubbed my forehead, trying to keep my cool. My stomach was tight, my head pounding. I had everything I needed now. It was time to face her, to expose her lies. I didn't want her to get away with this. I'd make her see what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away. Next, I thought about how to do it. I wanted her to feel the shock, the shame. I was planning to confront her when she'd least expect it. Maybe when she came home, I'd have everything laid out. The receipts, the messages, the evidence. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. I remembered the feeling of betrayal, like a blade twisting in my gut. All those nights we spent dreaming about our future, now shattered beyond recognition. I kept telling myself I deserved better. I deserved to be angry, to be vindictive. Not just to punish her, but to reclaim some sense of dignity for myself. This wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about justice, about not letting her get away with lying and cheating. I'd show her that I knew everything, that she couldn't hide behind her lies anymore. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to see what it looked like when someone you trusted turns out to be a stranger. As I sat there, staring at my phone, I knew this was just the beginning. The real confrontation was coming, and I was ready to make her face what she'd done. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I was done being played. Whatever it took, I'd make her regret ever crossing that line, because I wasn't just a man scorned. I was a man who was about to take back control. A few days passed, and the tension only grew thicker. I kept replaying everything in my head, her secret messages, the ultrasound, the day we'd planned our wedding. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living someone else's nightmare. Every time I saw her face, 1,000 questions clashed in my mind. Was this the woman I married? Had she been lying to me all along? Or worse, did she even love me? My phone buzzed with the info I'd asked my friend to dig up. I hesitated before opening it. I knew what I'd find. I finally clicked on the message, and my jaw clenched as I read through the details. Emily had been sneaking around with Mark for nearly a year. The texts were casual but frequent, full of inside jokes and plans they'd made behind my back. And the clincher, a photo of her in a doctor's office, a recent ultrasound image with Mark's name written at the bottom. Timing was explicit. She wasn't just cheating, she was hiding a child's existence from me. I felt my stomach twist into a knot. My hands were sweaty as I stared at the screen. So much for the future I'd envisioned. So much for the trust I'd given her. I clenched the phone so tightly that I nearly cracked the screen. My mind raced with options: confront her now or wait and plan my move. I knew I couldn't just burst in with accusations. That would blow everything up in anger, and I'd regret it. I had to do this smart. That night I sat on the edge of my bed, the evidence spread out in my mind like a blueprint for my next move. I needed her to see that I knew everything. I was planning to confront her face to face, but with a twist. I'd lay everything out, proof, receipts, and her own words, and see how she'd react. I wanted her to realize that the game was over, that I wasn't going to be her fool any longer. I also thought about the emotional impact. I wanted her to feel exactly what I'd felt since I discovered her betrayal. The sick feeling in my stomach, the pounding headache, the way my palms itched to grab her and shake her. But I knew I had to stay calm. Cold, calculated. That was the only way to hit her where it would hurt. Before making any moves, I made a checklist. I'd bring her the ultrasound photo, the texts, and the receipts from the clinic. I'd ask her what she thought I didn't know. I'd tell her I'd uncovered everything, and then I'd see her crack. I wanted her to see that I had evidence, that I wasn't going to let her slip away with this lie. The hardest part was deciding when to confront her. I didn't want her to have time to prep or deny everything. I wanted her caught off guard, vulnerable. I planned to do it the next evening after she got home from work. I'd set the stage, make sure I had everything ready, and then I'd ask her to sit down. That night I sat in the dark, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on my chest. Betrayal, anger, heartbreak, those words don't even scratch the surface. I was furious, disappointed, hurt beyond words, but more than anything I was determined. She crossed a line and I was ready to make her face it. I'd make her own her lies, her betrayal. I was done playing nice. As I prepared for what was coming, I kept telling myself one thing. I wasn't just going to confront her, I was going to confront her with truth. And that truth would be the end of whatever fairy tale she'd been trying to sell me. The next night would be the night I finally laid it all out. And I'd see what she was really made of. The next evening I could barely sleep. My stomach was tight and my head kept replaying everything I'd uncovered. The evidence was ready, photos, texts, the clinic receipts. I laid them all out on the table like a folder of damning proof. I wanted her to see each piece clearly, no room for denial. As I sat there, my fingers trembled, but I knew I had to stay composed. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about finally exposing the lie she'd been living. She came home around 6:30, her usual tired smile hiding something. I watched her walk through the door and my body tensed. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. She looked at me and I could see a flicker of something, nervousness. Maybe she sensed what was coming. "Hey," she said, her voice soft. "What's wrong?" I kept my tone even. "Sit down, Emily, we need to talk." She hesitated for a second, then sat across from me. Her eyes flicked over the evidence on the table. I saw her swallow hard. My palms were sweaty, but I pushed forward. "I've found out everything," I said, voice steady but with a cold edge. "The ultrasound, your texts, the clinic receipts. You've been cheating and you're hiding a child from me. Is that right?" Her face went pale and she looked away for a moment. Then she tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I can explain." "No," I cut her off. "You don't get to explain, not anymore. I've seen the proof, all of it." She looked like she was about to cry, but I was past caring about her tears. I felt my chest tighten with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I'd loved her, trusted her. Now I just felt emptier than ever. "You lied to me from the start," I said, voice shaking slightly. "All those plans we made, that future we talked about, it was just a lie. You were with him, Mark, while we were supposed to be building something real." She looked down, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you." "Bullshit," I snapped. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You've been lying to me for months." My voice cracked, the betrayal cutting deeper than I thought possible. She finally looked up. "Please don't do this." She whispered, "It's not what you think." "Oh, I think I know exactly what I think," I said. "You've been sneaking around behind my back, hiding a pregnancy and trying to pretend everything's fine." "Well, it's not. I don't want to be with someone who lies like that. I deserve better." She broke into tears then, sobbing loudly. But I didn't feel any pity. Instead, I felt a sick satisfaction, knowing I'd finally uncovered her lies. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folder with more proof I'd gathered, screenshots of her messages and the ultrasound photo. I slid everything across the table. "This is over," I said coldly. "You're not welcome here anymore. I want you to leave tonight and don't come back. I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow." Her sobs turned into full-blown crying, but I had made up my mind. I stood up, feeling the weight of the situation press down on me. I looked at her one last time, then headed for the door. As I opened it, she reached out, grabbing my arm desperately. "Please," she begged. "We can work this out. I'll do anything." I shook her off and slammed the door behind me. The sound echoed in the empty hallway. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd done it. I'd finally confronted her with the truth, and I'd ended it. Walking away from that house, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For a moment, I thought about what I'd lost: trust, love, the life I'd envisioned. But I also felt something else: liberation. I was finally free from her lies, free to rebuild myself. That night I went straight to the lawyer's office and filed the papers. It was time to put this behind me. I knew I'd have to face the fallout: questions, anger, maybe regret. But I also knew one thing: I wasn't the fool anymore. I'd take control, no matter how hard it was. And as I handed over the keys to the house, I told myself softly, no more lies, no more hiding. It's time to start over. That was my lesson: trust is fragile, and sometimes you have to fight to protect what's real. The days that followed felt like walking through fog. I was numb, yet hyper-aware of every breath I took. Every morning I woke up, I'd stare at the ceiling, waiting for the initial shock to fade, but it never quite did. The house felt empty, colder somehow, even with the sunlight pouring through the windows. I'd handed her the keys, watched her pack her things, and told her she was done. That small act of giving her the keys left me feeling strangely hollow. It was the final break, the closing of a chapter I'd never thought would end like this. I spent most of that week planning my next move, trying to figure out how to reclaim myself from this mess. My mind kept circling back to her, her lies, her betrayal, but I refused to let her win the narrative. I knew I had to do something that would make her regret the lies she'd told, even if it was just a small reminder that I was still standing. One afternoon, I sat at my desk, staring at the pile of divorce papers. I was about to sign them when I remembered something. A detail I'd overlooked amid all the chaos. Her phone. The one she'd always kept close, and now I realized I'd never checked. Her social media. I'd only seen the messages from her and Mark, but I hadn't looked at her entire digital footprint. I decided to take a closer look. I needed to know what else she'd been hiding. I dove into her social profiles, her private messages, and her email account. It was like peeling an onion: layers of secrets I never knew existed. There, buried among the usual stuff, were conversations with other people. Not just Mark, others too. It looked like she'd been juggling several affairs, hiding her tracks behind fake names and burner accounts. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. This wasn't just a case of one affair, this was years of deception. Even more, I found out that some of those messages went back months before we got engaged. She'd been lying to me from the very beginning. I clenched my fists, feeling the heat rise in my chest. She'd been controlling her entire life, hiding her true self from me. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just walk away from her, not after finding this. No, I had to hit her where she'd feel it most. I needed to make her see that I knew everything, that she'd been caught in her own web of lies. The plan started taking shape. I'd send her a message, nothing confrontational, just enough to make her realize I'd found out the truth. I'd include snippets of her secret conversations, her fake profiles, everything. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. I was tired of being played for a fool. Late that evening, I sat at my computer, drafting a message. I kept it cold and precise, attaching screenshots of her messages, her fake accounts, the timeline of her lies. I also included a final line: "You can try to hide, but I know everything now, and I'm done." I hit send. The moment the message left my inbox, a strange sense of relief washed over me. It was a small victory, a way to regain some control. I knew she'd see it soon, and I wondered how she'd react. Would she deny everything, or would she start to crack? Over the next few hours, I watched my inbox. My phone buzzed a few times, but I didn't check it immediately. I needed to stay detached, let her come to me. I wanted her to realize that I was one step ahead, that her secrets no longer mattered. When I finally looked at my phone an hour later, I saw her reply. She texted just a few words: "Please, we can fix this. I love you. I'll do anything." It was pathetic, really. She was still trying to save herself, even though I'd already given her the ultimate proof. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, took a long sip, and stared out the window. My mind was clear now. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I'd seen her true face, and I wasn't going to forget it. She'd lost her chance to fix everything. Now I was just waiting for her to realize that her lies could only go so far. That night I finally let the tears come, bitter, hot, and sharp. Betrayal hurts. But what hurt even more was knowing I'd been played for a fool for so long. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd been living a double life. I wondered how I'd ever recover from this, but deep down I knew I had to. If I didn't, I'd stay, trapped in that hurt forever. The next day I made a decision. I was done waiting. I was going to take back control. I picked up the divorce papers, signed them, and handed them over to my lawyer. I was ready to move on, no matter how hard it was. I owed myself that much. I owed it to the man I used to be before all this chaos. As I handed the papers in, I looked her up on social media one last time. I saw her trying to post a new picture, pretending everything was okay. But I knew the truth. Lies only hide for so long. I turned away and started walking out. I didn't need her approval anymore. I'd rebuild myself from the ground up. And honestly, that felt like the first real step to healing. Weeks passed and the sting of everything still lingered, but I felt a strange sense of relief settling in. The house was empty now, quiet in a way that was almost peaceful. I'd handed over the final divorce papers and I was officially starting over. Looking back, I realized that facing her, confronting the truth, was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it was also the most necessary. I had to reclaim my dignity, my trust in myself, and my ability to see through lies. One morning, I walked into the bank and handed over the keys to my house. It was a simple gesture, but it sealed the chapter. I knew I'd never step foot in that place again, not as her husband. I felt lighter, like I'd finally cut the chains that had been dragging me down. The weight of betrayal was still there, but now it was slightly easier to carry because I knew I'd faced it head-on. I took a deep breath outside, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. I looked around at the city that I'd always called home. A fresh start. That's what I needed. I called my boss, told him I was taking some time off to sort things out, and then I started making plans for myself. No more secrets, no more lies, just me, figuring out what I wanted next. As I walked away from the bank, I thought about her, how she thought she could hide everything forever, how she thought she could cheat and lie without consequences. But the truth always has a way of surfacing, and in the end, honesty is what matters. I learned that the hard way. And I also learned that I was stronger than I thought. I'd survived the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the shame. In the days that followed, I avoided social media, refused to chase after her updates. Instead, I focused on myself, rebuilding, rediscovering what I loved, reconnecting with friends I'd ignored during the chaos. I started going to the gym again, taking long walks and picking up new hobbies. Little by little, I was reclaiming my life. One night, I sat alone in a quiet cafe, sipping coffee, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. I thought about all the lessons I'd learned. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people will betray you in ways you never expected. But you have a choice, whether to let that betrayal define you or to rise above it. Looking back, I realized that I'd been lucky. Lucky that I saw the truth before things got worse. Lucky that I had the strength to walk away. And lucky that I knew now what I deserved: honesty, respect, and someone who truly cares. I don't regret what happened because it pushed me to grow, to stand up for myself, and to finally see my worth. As I finished my coffee and stood up to leave, I felt a quiet certainty. I was finally ready to move forward. The past was behind me, a chapter closed. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape now. I left that cafe knowing one thing for sure: I'd never let a betrayal like this happen again. And next time, I'd be smarter, stronger, and more careful about who I let into my life. Sometimes the greatest lessons are born from pain, and the hardest defeats teach us what we're truly capable of overcoming. I've learned that trust must be earned, and even when it's broken, life goes on. You just have to be brave enough to walk away and build something better from the ruins.